Some people say I look like my mother. It must be true because as I was walking through Lenox Square one day, an older woman stopped me and asked me if I was Frances Mitchell's daughter. When I answered that yes, in fact I was, she said, "I went to elementary school with your mother." So there you have it. Apparently, I look enough like she did way back then that a total stranger recognized her in me years later. What does it really mean, I wonder, when people say, "You're just like your mother"? If I take inventory, some of the ways I'm like Mom are pretty obvious, and some, to be truthful, I'd just as soon leave off the list. The physical resemblances I understand, but clearly I'm not a redhead like she was. To her dismay, none of us inherited her distinctive auburn color. But every summer, when the sun lit my hair with reddish highlights, Mother's hope would spring eternal. "Maybe someday," she'd say wistfully, "I'll have a redheaded grandchild." Well, Mom, there's only one grandchild, my brown-haired boy. So I imagine she's looking down from heaven, still hoping maybe that the red hair will pop up in his kids someday. I am creative and artsy like she was, but in somewhat different ways. I know I have a better head for business, probably because she was one of those who could never quite get around to balancing her checkbook. Unfortunately, I did not get her singing voice. On a moment's notice, she could belt out a tune that would have made Judy Garland proud. I am gifted with many deep and lasting friendships, just as she was. And thanks to all her early training, I'm usually the one my friends call when some obscure question of etiquette pops up, like how to address a wedding invitation to two married doctors. The downside? All too often, I still hear her in my head asking some of the questions that she carried around most of her life. What will people think? That's a big one. And does this make me look fat? Which pops in now and then when the scales creep a bit over my comfort zone. Her priorities? We always came first. Like most mothers, she was there for whatever her kids needed. Taking good care of herself, not so much. She was the last one to go to the doctor, which I'm afraid shortened her life in the end. She was just a few years older than I am now when she died at 63, way too young, and way too much life left to live. But even then, she taught me what was really important. She's the reason why I religiously schedule my checkups, tests, and screenings. One day, not too long ago, I learned something about Mother that I had never known. Her closer-than-a-sister best friend, Connie, shared the story. Mother was visiting Connie and Jim when they lived in Italy, and she got the chance to go to Vienna. As she explored the cold city, Mom stayed warm and toasty in the Loden green garment that we had all lovingly dubbed her Julie Andrews cape. She'd bought it because it was just like the one Maria wore in one of her all-time favorite movies, The Sound of Music. While she was in Vienna, your mom wanted to visit Beethoven's grave, Connie told me. Once she got there, she spent all the money she had with her on flowers for his grave instead of having lunch. "I can eat any time," she told Connie, "but I may never have this chance again." That was Fran. That was your mom. I wasn't surprised. That time in her life, her travels with Connie and Jim around Italy and parts of Europe, gave my mother a new image of herself. I could tell by the letters she wrote and by the way she looked the minute she stepped off the plane on her return. She had found herself. She had used the folding easel I'd given her and painted her way around Italy. She made new friends, saw things she'd always dreamed of, shared laughter and food and wine in a whole new world. You know they love women in Italy, she told me. All women, even my age, and she laughed. And I could see that she'd fallen in love, not just with Italy, but also with this new vision of herself and her life. I've always felt that sending her to Italy was the greatest gift I ever gave her. Keeping things afloat at home so that she could live abroad for a while was a tiny investment that yielded a life-changing return. And that's how I hope I will always be most like my mother, keeping my eyes wide open, ready to experience the new, the long dreamed of, always expanding my vision of the world. And yes, knowing that I can eat anytime, but flowers for Beethoven may only come once.